It's 9000 BC. You're crouched at the edge of a lake, downwind of a herd of deer creeping closer. And on top of your head sits the skull of a deer, antlers and all, staring out where your own face should be. To the herd, you're just another animal. To you, you've become something else entirely. Ancient humans really did this. They wore the faces of animals. And the reasons go far deeper than a clever hunting trick. We have proof. In a waterlogged bog in northern England, at a site called Carr, archaeologists kept pulling the same impossible object out of the mud, a red deer's skull, with the antlers still attached. But these weren't just dropped skulls. Someone had worked them. The heavy bone had been hollowed and smoothed on the inside, so it would sit comfortably on a human head. The antlers had been trimmed down to make them lighter, and 2 holes had been carefully drilled through the bone. Almost certainly so, it could be tied on with a cord and worn. They found around 24 of these at Carr alone, which is roughly 90% of every example we have from this entire period in Europe. They are about 11,000 years old. These are deer skulls, deliberately turned into headdresses by people at the very dawn of the modern world. So the real question isn't whether ancient humans wore animal faces, it's why. And the first answer is the obvious one, the hunt. Put yourself back at that lake. You are a slow, soft, clawless animal trying to kill a deer. A creature faster than you, with better hearing, better smell, and an instinct to bolt at the first wrong shape on the horizon. You can't outrun it. You can't outsense it. The only way you're eating tonight is to get close. Close enough to strike before it knows you're a threat. So, you become the thing it isn't afraid of. You drape yourself in its hide. You put its head over yours. You move the way it moves. And a deer that would sprint from a human shape at 200 yards will let another deer wander right up beside it. This wasn't unique to the Stone Age either. Right into recent history, hunters on the plains of North America were still draping themselves in wolf skins to creep into the middle of a buffalo herd, because the buffalo had learned that a wolf at a distance wasn't worth panicking over. The animal face is a disguise, the oldest one we know of. But here's where it stops being simple, because if this were only about hunting, you'd expect these things to be rough and disposable, quick costumes you'd throw together and discard. The Carr headdresses are the opposite. They were carefully made with real skill and real time by people who clearly thought they mattered. And we find them treated with strange respect, many of them deliberately placed at the edge of the sacred lake, as if they were being given back. You don't ceremonially deposit a hunting hat. You do that with something powerful. So let's widen the lens, because wearing animals wasn't just about the face. It was about survival, head to toe. For most of human history, the thing most likely to kill you wasn't a predator. It was the cold. And the humans who pushed north into the freezing edges of the world only managed it because they learned to wear other animals expertly. We found delicate bone sewing needles in North America around 13,000 years old. And when researchers looked at what they were used on, they found the remains of foxes, bobcats, hares, even a now extinct kind of American cheetah. These weren't being hunted mainly for meat. They were being skinned for their fur. Ancient humans were essentially walking around wrapped in the warmest predators they could catch, wearing the animal in order to live where no naked human could. Wearing animals kept you fed. It kept you warm. But the deepest reason is the one that's hardest for us to feel today. Sometimes you put on the animal to stop being yourself. Go back to those Carr headdresses. Archaeologists who've studied them closely think they're more than disguises. They may be the oldest known shamanic costume in all of Europe. The idea is this: when a person put that skull on their head, in firelight, surrounded by their people, they weren't pretending to be a deer. In that moment, to everyone watching, and maybe to themselves, they became something between human and animal, a bridge to the spirit world. We're not guessing wildly here. Right into modern times, shamans among the reindeer cultures of Siberia wore antler headdresses for exactly this reason: to transform, to travel, to speak with the animal spirits on behalf of the tribe. Think about what that means. The same object could be a tool for sneaking up on a deer and a sacred costume for becoming a god. To these people, those two ideas might not have even been separate. The animal gave you food, and the animal gave you power, and putting on its face let you borrow both. And this urge to blur the line between human and beast is older and stranger than Carr. It might be one of the oldest things our minds ever did. Around 40,000 years ago, someone sat in a cave in what's now Germany and carved a small figure out of mammoth ivory. It took hundreds of hours, and what they chose to make with all that effort wasn't a person and wasn't an animal. It was both. A standing human body with the head of a lion. We call it the Lion Man, and it is one of the oldest pieces of art on Earth that shows something that does not exist. Before we carved gods, before we painted heroes, we carved a human wearing the face of a beast. It shows up again and again. In a cave in France, painted on the wall, there's a figure called the sorcerer, a creature with the legs of a man, the antlers of a stag, and the eyes of an owl, watching over a chamber full of animals. In Indonesia, there are cave paintings over 40,000 years old showing part human, part animal hunters. All over the ancient world, separated by oceans and tens of thousands of years, humans kept imagining the same thing, a being that was half us and half something wilder. So why? Why does this idea live so deep in us? Picture the world through ancient eyes. You are surrounded by creatures that are, frankly, better than you. The deer is faster. The bear is stronger. The owl sees in the dark you're afraid of. The bird does the impossible and flies. You are clever, yes, but you are weak and slow, and the night is full of things that aren't. So, when you take the face of one of those animals and place it over your own, you're not just hiding. You're reaching for what it has. Its speed, its strength, its senses, its place in a world that often felt bigger than you. That single act, covering your own face to take on the power of something else, is the seed of an enormous amount of what came after. The hunter's disguise, the shaman's transformation, the first masks, the first costumes, the first time a human being stood up and, for a little while, convincingly pretended to be something they were not. Every god with an animal head, every painted dancer, every character in every story since, they all trace back to this, to a person who looked at an animal and wanted more than anything to wear it. So come back one last time to the edge of that lake. 11,000 years ago, the deer skull resting on your head, the herd grazing just ahead, none of them afraid. From the outside, you're a hunter in a clever costume. But from the inside, something stranger is happening. You're standing exactly on the line between human and animal, the line every one of your ancestors was fascinated by. And for a few breaths, you get to live on both sides of it at once. You're not just wearing a face, you're becoming someone else. And that turns out to be one of the most human things we've ever done.